I'm Jason Trost, filling in for Tommy Cooper on He Said, She Said on the Para X radio network. I have the privilege of filling in for Tommy Cooper, and that means I get to be joined by Stephanie Langer. Stephanie Langer, thank you for being here.
Yeah. Hi, Jason. How are you tonight?
Beautiful. It's been a beautiful day in Northwest PA.
I know. It's been really nice up here in Minnesota, too. Finally, we get some warm weather.
Yeah. It was nice all weekend long, and I got to take a couple of walks and do quite a bit of yard work, and it feels good.
Doesn't it? I agree. So our fearless leader of the show, Tommy Cooper, is down and out for a little bit. Jason, can you fill us in and let us know how he's doing?
Yes, yeah. Monday afternoon, I was with Tommy and ended up taking him to the hospital for a stroke. And there's no such thing as a minor stroke, but Tommy did not suffer a major one, and he's been showing rapid improvement and staying positive, and we're feeling pretty good. He's out of the regular hospital and into a rehab facility now, and that's the first hurdle there. And he's been able to send us a little bit couple of pictures through some cell phones and given us the thumbs up and dropped the devil horns for us, and we're feeling pretty good about it.
Awesome.
Unfortunately, with today's medical environment, you can't get in to see him. Nobody can get in to see him because there's no visitors. So that makes it a little bit more trying, but we're staying positive, and I think he's staying pretty good and upbeat.
Now, can he use a cell phone? Can he use his phone at all, or no? Or
we haven't been able to yet. And I think now that he's been moved, I think he'll be able to in the next couple of days.
Good. And I've seen a lot of people standing outside of windows. You mentioned that before the show started, that you thought maybe some people would go stand outside his window and wave or something.
Yeah, that was what we were hoping for today.
Yeah, it's just kind of a weird time right now. I mean, it's just weird, like I was mentioning, I was down near the Minneapolis airport today, and there was no planes taking off. It was like the weirdest thing ever, and it's like one of the biggest airports in the country. So bizarre feeling. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. But okay, so we have this fabulous guest on tonight.
Yes, I'm very excited.
I know. I haven't talked to him for a little while, and he is he's a cryptid researcher like we are, and he's also, Jason, a producer for a radio show too. So everybody, welcome Mike Richburg. Hi, Mike.
Hey guys, how's everybody doing?
We are awesome. Thanks for being on.
Yeah,
you're welcome. It's my pleasure.
So how's it going down in South Carolina? Tell everybody what the temperature is down there.
Where I'm at in the middle of the state, it was probably about 80 today, and sunny skies and birds and bees and pollen everywhere.
Crazy. That sounds so nice. So I know that everybody's been staying at home, but in Minnesota, we're encouraged to go out in the outdoors, and I haven't been in the field personally for about a week and a half. We kind of thought about going out this weekend, but it just didn't happen. So have you been out in the field doing any research recently?
Not in the last few weeks, but prior to that, I was staying pretty busy. My usual routine of trouncing around in the forest, in the swamps.
Do you have an area that you like to go to the best, like a research area?
Well, yes. In South Carolina here, of course, a lot of what I do is investigate Bigfoot sightings, or historically speaking, that's what I have been doing for the last 40-some years now. And there's a lot of Bigfoot reports and that type of thing here. And as far as chasing down stuff like that, I end up in a lot of swamps and river floodplains. And coincidentally, many of the reports, most all reports of any kind of unusual animals, say a large bird that's out of place or something like that, giant snakes and what have you, it's almost always in the river floodplains here in the eastern half of South Carolina. Up in the western part of the state, particularly in the very northwestern corner, it's a bit hilly. It's the Cherokee foothills. It's more or less the southeasterly most part of the Blue Ridge Escarpment. And that area is very nice. So that's two common themes I would have as far as where I go. Typically, over the years, I spent a lot of time in the river bottoms and the floodplains here in the South Carolina, mostly in the low country. And then up in the foothills, there's quite a few interesting spots up there as well.
Mm-hmm. And so you do a lot of Bigfoot research, but you also have other cryptids that you look for as well. Like I know one time we talked about the big winged creature that you saw one time.
I saw a giant bird one time. I was with two other people that, and we witnessed as a group this very large eagle-type bird that just was extremely large in proportion. It looked very much like a golden eagle, which was quite, impressive sight to behold. And but there's lots of other cryptids, as a lot of folks will refer to them as here in South Carolina. You have a long history of stuff going on. Chronologically for me, it was the Bigfoot first that got me started. And then right after that, about 10 years after I had a Bigfoot experience as a young teenager, about 10 years later, in the late 80s, there was the lizard man phenomenon, the Bishopville lizard man. And I know that became quite a media circus and everything, but at the beginning, at the heart of all of it, there was something, going on there that was very unusual. And I've researched that quite a bit. But there's reports of giant snakes and different locales here in the low country, and lots of other things too. Giant salamanders, things like you have like folklore and sightings associated with regional type things like the Fort Motte Devil of Fort Motte area, of Fort Motte, South Carolina. It's very interesting history on that. So there's quite an array of different things going on. I mean, it's quite a mixed bag.
That Fort Motte Devil, what kind of creature is that?
Well, that's a good question. Because the Fort Motte Devil, is different things to different people, in so many words. That thing started hundreds of years ago.
Really?
Around the time of the Revolutionary War. There was a tale of a strange guest that came to dinner at a home just outside the fort there. And I have to relate this now. Fort Motte was a very important region. It's just a dot on the map now. It's almost forgotten. But at the time, in colonial America and around the time of the Revolutionary War, Camden, South Carolina, was a very important location, a very important fort. And Charleston was where the goods would come from, up the river to Fort Motte. They would come up the Santee River to Fort Motte and then fork up the Wateree River to Camden. So Fort Motte was at the juncture of the Wateree and the Congaree where the Santee River starts. And that was a very important strategic location, military-wise. So it was quite of great importance. So if something went on in Fort Motte at the time, it was a big deal or whatever. But this unwanted guest had came to dinner, and at some point, his headwear shifted and some horns were noticed. And at that time, the lady of the home reached for a trusty Bible and broke it out, or so the legend goes, and the beast fled. And this stranger was said to have a face like a man, but a very odd gait. And when it took off out of there, it left a hoof mark, a burnt hoof mark on both the door and a rock, a boulder, in the property, just outside the home. So that's the first notation or documentation of anything related to the Fort Motte Devil that I know of personally.
Uh-huh.
So that's a bit of a folklore story there in the heart of it. But through the years, Fort Motte lies basically on the edge, on a bluff on the south side of the river there, overlooking the Colosea Basin, which is a large river floodplain where both of those rivers, the Wateree and the Congaree, come together. There's quite an abundance of wildlife in the area as far as deer and wild hog and things like that. A few black bear, not too many. Well, being farmed and hunted quite a bit in that area over the years, the people in the region would report things similar to a goat man. You've heard the stories of the goat man of Maryland or goat man of wherever, what have you, So that's an element involved into it. Also, I think that people, when they see a Bigfoot on occasion in the area, which is a rich history of Bigfoot sightings in that area, coincidentally, that people will just jump to the conclusion, say, oh, well, that's the Fort Motte Devil. When you see something unusual in the woods walking around, oh, you saw the Fort Motte Devil. Mm-hmm. You're in Fort Motte, yeah, it's Fort Motte Devil. All right, so it kind of works like that. But then there's also a lot of alleged activity of perhaps another bipedal canine type thing that some people would, refer to as a werewolf or a dog man or something like that. There's local names for it, and a lot of people in rural South Carolina is very antiquated. It's a little. It's not. You can pull up into some South Carolina towns and you think you're in 1956.
It's kind of old country.
Yeah, it's like well, maybe not. Some of them rural areas ain't exactly the high tech zone or anything. So like, people would see all this different stuff, and you see this thing that you don't know what it is, so you say Fort Motte Devil. So it just depends, to answer your question, it just depends on the context, and everybody's perspective on who you might ask about the Fort Motte Devil is what you get. Are they thinking, is it some ghost story folklore tale from the Revolutionary War? Is it Goat Man? Is it Bigfoot? Is it something else maybe? So it's pretty interesting, and somebody should really write a book on it actually, because it's so many interesting stories, and some of them leave you wondering like what really could be, because there's some compelling evidence also that I've seen in regards to like three-toed tracks in the area, and we can go into that maybe. Yeah, time.
Three-toed. So is that like Dogman, or is that like a goat man?
Well, I don't know. I'll tell you what they look like. They look exactly like, and I've stood in Monster Mart in Fouke, Arkansas, and stood there and looked at in the glass case a cast of a footprint that was taken in the bean field in Fouke, Arkansas, many years ago. You might be familiar with the story, the legend of Boggy Creek.
Yeah.
Well, those tracks that I find look exactly like that, and I'm not just the ones I find. I mean, people in the area have found three-toed tracks. Okay, I just thought that was worth noting, that they do look an awful lot like the three-toed track from Fouke, Arkansas, is of some fame, or at least noteworthy.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I can't sit here. I'm not a primatologist. I'm not a biologist. I don't understand animal locomotion and whatever, but I'm pretty much from the woods, and I know the woods pretty good, and I see something like a track like that I can't explain. It makes me really reconsider what might be out there. Mm-hmm. And I've seen a lot of stuff like that over the years, so I'm pretty open-minded too. But it's nothing concrete. A track is good, audio is good. I have some strange audio and that type of stuff, but it's none of it will ever amount to proof or anything like that, and that's really not my goal. I never set out in my lifetime to prove anything. Mm-hmm. I had an experience as a 14-year-old. It traumatized me, and it instilled a great amount of curiosity in me. And so it just
Was
kind
that
of... Go ahead.
Was that a Bigfoot experience?
Yes, it was.
And was that
I was 14
was
years
that a
old.
negative experience?
Well, no, not really. It just scared the crap out of me, man. I was never felt really... It didn't do anything threatening. I'll tell you the short story real quick, man.
Yeah,
So,
Yes.
please do.
I'm deer hunting. I'm 14. I probably done seen the legend of Boggy Creek or whatever by then, and whatever. Bigfoot's cool, UFO's cool, ghosts, whatever. That's all cool. It's just stuff, whatever. Just like a lot of people. And it wasn't really a focus of my life or anything. So we're like, there's a dog drive going on. We're deer hunting, right? Which I don't hunt anymore, but back then I did. Me and my dad and was down at the local hunt club, right? So I'm deer hunting in a place called Devil's Orchard, which is directly adjacent to the Congaree River. And it is basically, well, it's a Carolina Bay. I don't know if you know what that is. It's a geological formation called the Carolina Bay.
I don't know what that
I've
is.
never heard of that.
Yeah, it's basically an oval-shaped depression in the ground as a result of distilled ejecta impacting from the Saginaw impact manifold about 250,000 years ago in Saginaw, Michigan. A cometary body slammed into the earth. So there's some craters out in the Midwest and some craters in like the Carolinas and Georgia. And the ones around South Carolina are in the South Carolina Low Country, and there's a lot of water around, so most of them's got water. So it's the Carolina Bay, and it's about the most westerly bay in South Carolina. But I was there, and I with my dad, we was deer hunting one morning. It was in the fall of 1978. I don't remember the exact day. And people question me about that. I don't know. I mean, I have trouble remembering people's birthday or anything. I don't know about memories. So it was a warm morning. It was foggy, and we went through the morning ritual. Stopped down at the country store that had a diner in it that would open up early and feed all the hunters and stuff. And they game plan. Then they go down there and group up, and they get up in some back of some trucks, and they go put people out with shotguns every so often. Put somebody out with a shotgun in case a deer run that way. And then they turn around and turn dogs loose. So me and my daddy got put out. We was the last two standers down on the river. On this morning, see, the big deer were smart, the big bucks. When they would turn the dogs loose, the big deer would just go swim the river. So this morning, on that particular morning, we decided we would put standers down the river. And when the big buck went to the river to swim the river, somebody might get a shot at the big buck or whatever. That's the theory. So me and my daddy, the last two standers. And the way we walked in, I was like, there was nobody down the river from me. And then my dad was the next person up the river, and there was somebody on the side of him, and and so on and so forth. So I was the last stander. And my daddy told me, we're going to walk in here. And we got to this place where the creek, we was walking in beside a creek, and he told me to cross the creek there and walk to the river, basically, and then turn around where I could see back over a semi-open area so I could get a shot at a deer. I was like, you got it, man. It wasn't my first rodeo. I've been hunting before or whatever. So I crossed the creek and walked on in there. I did just like he said. I walked to the river, and he was doing the same thing on the other side of the creek. But you got to remember now, this creek opened up into a big cut as it got close to the river, so he was further and further away from me. Well, I had my walk to the river. I couldn't really, like if a boat had been on the other side of the river over there or out there on the river, I couldn't really see it. It was really foggy. So, but I walked to the top of the riverbank and turned around. And by the time I got settled in good, just stood there for like, I don't know, what seemed like 5, maybe 10 minutes. I heard something get out of the water, like over my left shoulder. My back was to the river. I heard something get out of the water and come up the river. And I said, "Oh, well, here comes a deer out the river coming into the hunt. I'm gonna shoot me a big old buck because it sounded big as you could hear water running off of it or whatever." So okay, here it goes. And it got up to the top of the riverbank, kind of even where I was, maybe just slightly over my shoulder, just a little bit from where I would have been normally facing. I just kind of turned that way by then. I had my gun, obviously, and it moved around in there, and it sounded pretty heavy. So I figured it must be a big hog. And I said, ooh, I ain't got enough gun for a big hog. You know, I don't want to tangle with nothing like that. So, but I didn't get to think about that for very long because it made this noise that sounded like that. And I couldn't figure out if that was a sigh or a grunt or something. That's like a human sound. And then I got like weirded out, like, hell, there ain't nobody around here. I'm miles from where anybody's supposed to be at. So if there's somebody here, something ain't right. It's an escaped convict or something ain't, something ain't right. And about that time, it walked out of the bush. It was about even with me on the top of that riverbank. And it come out about, I would say, maybe 50, 60 feet from me. It emerged from some brush. Now, there's brush all in there, but I could kind of see a little bit. I was intentionally standing in an area where I could kind of see a little bit if a deer came running through there. So there's undergrowth, but you can see a little. This thing walks out and it's pitch black. And it's standing upright. And I thought my brain wanted to say bear. But at the same time, my eyes looked straight at the ear on the side of his head. And it was not a bear ear. It wasn't a pointy ear like a bear dog. It was kind of a rounded off ear like a man.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Ho, that ain't right." And it's walking upright.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't really see his face because it was really not walking toward me or anything. It walked out kind of in front of me, kind of quartering out in front of me. And it walked out there. It probably walked a good 60 feet or so from where it come up the river and stopped to where it stopped again, where I had walked in, like it maybe smelt my trail, I'm guessing.
Mm.
And then it turned and went off the other way. But that thing was so big. And look, the arms were so massive and everything, and it scared me so bad. When it walked off, I could hear the dogs start barking like they turn the dogs loose up at the other end of the hunt. And I felt real good about that because that means, dogs, people, guns, and we want all the help we can. The cavalry needs to come on down in here right now. It'll be fine with me. So, but I realized then, I had been crying. And I wet my pants and all kinds of stuff. I was sitting there like really freaked out. And I give that thing a few minutes and I kept thinking about what I should do. And the only thing I knew to do was get on out of there. So I gave it a few minutes to get out of there and I took on off and beat it back out there to where they dropped me and my daddy off where we supposed to meet back up. And the thing scared me so bad. One, it wasn't supposed to be there. Because, I kept up in school and all. I knew what, from the woods, and I already knew what to expect. Even if I seen a bear, I'd be like, hey, that was pretty cool. It was a bear. But it just wasn't supposed to be there, and it looked so intimidating. And it never looked at me. And I'm so grateful it never looked at me because I don't know what I would have done. I was already thinking, literally. Go ahead.
Did you tell your old man when you got back?
Negatory, Ghost Rider. For a couple different reasons. One, my daddy would have took my shotgun and said, "Okay, well, we'll go to the doctor about the gorillas when you get home."
Oh my!
And two, because you come out the woods saying, "I just seen a gorilla," Daddy'd be worried about me. Well, let me hold the gun for a minute, So but the other thing was, my daddy probably would have picked on me. And by the time I got back to the little hunt club up there in the truck, I would have been known as Monkey Boy the rest of my life or something like that. I already had enough problems. I wasn't, going to go down that road. I never did tell my daddy, who's now passed, about that morning.
Really?
In no way, shape, or form. I didn't tell nobody for the longest time. Hell, I was married to a woman for 19 years, and I never told her the way after we was divorced.
Wow.
I didn't tell nobody.
But by then you were already doing cryptid research, right? So didn't people want to know how you got
Oh, yeah.
You just didn't say
yeah, no,
anything,
when it first happened, it scared me real bad, and I quit going in the woods for a while. And, completely.
Yeah.
And then I kind of used hunting as a way to go back in the woods. I went and got me a 7mm Magnum. And
Nice.
said, okay, I'm going to get my ass up in a tree with this high-powered rifle You know, if Bigfoot wants to get rowdy, we got something. Maybe I got something. I don't know. It's better than that 20 gauge shotgun I had. I'll tell you that. All right, so I did. I went back, and then hunting helped me get used to the woods again and get over my fear a little bit, and helped me realize, you know, like they ain't trying to hurt us or nothing like that. I mean, the thing, if it would have seen me, it still probably wouldn't have hurt me, I should say, or what have you. So after a good 3 years maybe, it was before I really started going back in the woods a lot. But once I did, I kind of got over my fear enough to try to find answers. And that was the big thing with me. I was just so curious about what I'd seen and how could it be. And because like another part, I mean, right when I saw it even, I didn't never say like Bigfoot. Because like, I thought Bigfoot was like the Legend of Boggy Creek kind of slumped over with moss hanging off of it and duckweed or something like that. But this thing wasn't like the swamp monster. It had a nice, healthy, groomed-looking coat, like a nice black bear or a Labrador retriever or something. So, it just, I was so curious, I had to go back in the woods. And then I was talking, you know, back in the day, there wasn't no internet or nothing when this happened. I mean, the best I could do was go around to the library and try to find a book with something in it and check it out, or something if I was lucky enough to see In Search Of, or something like that, or Arthur C. Clarke's show, or something like that, you know, have something on Bigfoot or the Yeti or something like that. But there was really not a lot of resources. So one thing I did is I went and spent just a little bit of money, had a bunch of business cards made up. I went to all these little general stores and fishing, you know, like bait and tackle stores out in the country and stuff like that. And most of them have a bulletin board with land for sale or a tractor or somebody found a dog or something or whatever. So I put my little card on there, seen something weird in the woods, whatever, call it. So I did the word of mouth campaign, basically. And that helped. I got a lot of steam on that. I kept putting cards out in certain locations, and I would get a lot of prank calls and stuff like that. But, you know, some of the stuff was legit, and I would investigate it. So for probably 3 decades, I rode all over South Carolina talking to people. I probably talked to hundreds of people, I'm sure. I walked thousands of miles into swamps, you know, and I'll say this, people see stuff that ain't in the books. You know, that's what struck me when I saw that Bigfoot in 1978. That's the first thing that hit me is, okay, this is not in any school book I've been shown. Because gorillas is like in Africa. Okay, and this is South Carolina, and this ain't adding up. So it's a fascinating subject, but obviously for 3 decades talking to a bunch of people, seeing what I've seen here and there, I've seen a few things, I'm fully convinced that not only is Bigfoot real, but some other stuff too is out there.
Oh, yeah. Without a doubt.
Yeah, and there's kind of some slippery rabbit holes when you get into some of that, like lizard man and goat man and stuff. That's kind of hard to come up with just a scientific explanation for those things.
It really is. So I look carefully at the details, and well, like the lizard man's a good example. The most famous sighting, which really was not the first sighting, people think it was the first sighting, was Chris Davis. The young man was changing the tire. I don't know if you heard the famous story, but you know, this thing came across the bean field at him at 2 in the morning or whatever. He's changing the tire out in the middle of the country on a dirt road. All right, so that witness, Christopher Davis, he and many other witnesses described the animal, whatever it was, as having hair. It did say scales, you know, on his face and his hands and feet and all, but most everybody reported in the beginning was reporting something with hair on it. So hair is a mammalian type of situation, not a reptilian type of situation. So I would deduce that, first off, we're not dealing with a lizard on any level. But since somebody said scaly skin, the newspaper took off with it, and then, you know, some paper in New York City got a hold of it, and then boom, boom, boom. The lizard man's living in the Bishopville, South Carolina underground or something. and it's on and on and on. And it was quite different. It was a 3-ring circus. It really was. But at the heart of all of it, there was a real phenomenon. Something real.
Mm-hmm.
People were seeing stuff. Like this crop duster, and I always forget his name, but the crop duster, nice fella and all, he seen it like when he was taking off from the airport where he was at or whatever. And he got a good look at it. And at the same time frame, he got a look of something. I can't say yet, but he saw something that was very much basically a Bigfoot, what he said he saw.
Mm-hmm.
So, we know that there was probably Bigfoot activity in the area at the time, and people saying the thing had hair. But there was a couple clues that enticed one a little further. Like Christopher Davis, that's again one of the most important sightings, was one of those sightings that they said they had 3 fingers. All right. 3 fingers and 3 toes keeps coming back up. And that is a theme from hundreds of years ago with an animal reported as the hide behind. You ever heard of that name?
Mm-mm. Hide behind? Is that what you said?
The hide behind. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
See, early settlers here, when the white folks first started coming over here, they would see stuff picking around a tree at them. And they described it as basically a dog man. It was a pronounced canine snout, pronounced canine teeth, carried tail. So it's either like a baboon or a canine looking type something. Okay, something resembling that. You know what I'm saying? A snout, big canine teeth, carried tail, walk around on 2 legs, and picking out around trees at them. Now, English settlers call it the hide behind typically, whereas if you was from France, you'd probably call it a loup-garou or a rougarou.
Oh.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you probably heard those terms before.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you get a lot of that. So there's like an old history of stuff there. This is not a new phenomenon, really. So if you find 3-toed tracks, and there's a history of people reporting these crazy critters with 3 toes and 3 fingers for hundreds of years, there might be something to it.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. It is time for us to cut to a commercial break now, but we will be right back.
Explore the darkness.
Find out what goes bump in the night. Did you hear that?
Did you see that? What's that bright light in the sky? Oh, we so need to investigate.
Calling all witches and sensitives.
Explore the paranormal.
With host
Shauna
and Vicky from Geeks Paranormal. Wednesdays
at 9 Eastern.
8 Central.
Let's explore. On paraxradio.com.
Hey, this is Lee.
And this is Michelle.
And this is Dustin from the Dead Zone.
Your source for everything paranormal. Para-X.
Are you haunted by shadow people in the middle of the night?
Do you secretly love all things creepy and spooky, enjoying ghost stories and horror fiction from the best storytellers?
Do you have a true ghost experience you want to share, but no one will believe you?
If yes, listen to the professionals on What Are You Afraid Of? Horror Paranormal Show Friday nights at 9 p.m. on Para-X Radio and at www.whatareyouafraidofpodcast.com.
What Are You Afraid Of on Para-X?
Our creepy and demented hosts are on call to provide you with all your spooky needs with true ghost stories, interviews, indie music, and new horror fiction. We are ready to scare you.
Para-X.
I'm Jenna Valadez with the Basement Files. Tune in Friday nights, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Para-X Radio Network.
Your source for everything paranormal. Para-X. The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para-X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
And we are back on He Said, She Said, and we have Mike Richburg, producer of Undiscovered Beasts and Strange Phenomena. What are some of the cool projects that you guys are a part of right now?
Myself, I don't do a lot in the public eye. I've been around a long time. Obviously, I've never really been much of one to try to do a lot of stuff publicly. I kind of started off doing it for myself. I have my own self curiosity and everything. Now, my running partner, Adam Davis, he's quite renowned as a world traveler and explorer, as well as cryptozoologist. And he's always got 40 million things going on. We do manage to get together and overlap enough to get the show done, though, and it's a project that we really enjoy. We both really do take a lot of enjoyment in providing the podcast that we do, and it's something good. It's a good way to share. Mm-hmm. Obviously, somebody like Adam or even myself has a lot of stuff to share. And a podcast is a good way to do that. Somebody like me, like Adam, has authored now at least 3 or 4 books. I think the 4th one's about to come out. But I've not written a book. It might have
just come out last week.
Oh, now he's just written a book he had is Extreme Expeditions 3, Bigfoot versus the Yeti. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you're into that kind of thing, like all of us are, that's kind of a must-read. So I can't recommend that book enough. He's got another one coming out pretty soon, too. And but, somebody like me that can't really, I'm never probably going to write a book just because my eyesight's so bad and stuff like that, and I'm getting a little older now and things like that. So I might never write a book, but I can talk. And daggone it, if I can hear good enough to hear a question, I can talk back. So we in good shape.
Well, I think you need to write all the stories about the Fort Motte Devil, whatever it is down there. I think that would be a fascinating book, actually.
The Fort Motte Devil. Well, somebody sure needs to write a book about it. I'm not sure I'm the person.
Well, you said you had so many stories that you've heard from down there. I think that'd be really cool.
Oh, yeah. It's a long history of strangeness there in that area for whatever reason. It's just good habitat for one thing, and on top of that, it's got a long history of semi like paranormal stuff, if you will, going on. It's a high concentration of Bigfoot sightings in that area too. And that's one thing that I always give as a tip for people start down, like, where do you even start to look for Bigfoot, right? Mm-hmm. Well, river bottoms, anywhere near water, it's going to be near water. That's a given. But one thing I noticed was a pattern in naming places. European Americans name places on maps with names like monkey and devil and stuff like that in them.
Oh, sure.
And if you look at the map and you say, hey, look at this. It's Monkey Creek right here by Devil's Mountain or whatever. I wonder what the story is on that. Well, it probably is a reason. They didn't just arbitrarily just pull that out of thin air. Mm-hmm. And that is so often the case here in South Carolina. Just upriver from the Fort Motte area, basically in the same area is an island called Devil's Island, right there in Devil's Elbow on the river, which I think the river changed course. It's not even truly an island anymore now. I have to go down the river and check it out. But, that's a trend. I always throw that tip out there. Mm-hmm. You want somewhere that's got something interesting going on, look for the history. The history is often right there in your face, right on the map. Mm-hmm. Just that simple sometimes.
It's really good.
You've done quite a bit with some UFO research too, haven't you?
Well, yeah, I have a strong interest in that. As I've seen a couple things that I maybe couldn't explain or something, over the years. I do a lot of what I call sky watching. I'm not a UFO expert or anything, but I keep up with astronomy a little bit and kind of know, find, 4 or 5 planets out there, the brightest ones or whatever, and that type of thing. I like military aviation and aviation history in general, so I'm into aerospace and aviation, so I kind of know what's going on. So if I see something super unusual, I think that's very, very interesting and fascinating, actually. So that's something I do like to keep an eye on. I like to mix it up a bit. About a year ago, I went up to an area, and this is another thing. There are some places where there's a high concentration of, say, Bigfoot activity, but there's also a high concentration of other things, maybe like UFO or paranormal activity. Something that happens to be in the same geographical location for some reason. So one of those places is like the Western Hudson Valley and just south of the Catskills and that general area right there in New York. So about a year ago, I went to New York, and most of it was Bigfoot related stuff I was up there doing in the mountains of the Catskills. But it's also like Pine Bush, New York is like the Roswell of east of the Mississippi. I mean, it's like, it has a tremendous history of activity, literally like thousands of reports, most of them, I guess, from the late 80s. But just a long story history there. So there was some overlap there. Then I came back. I stopped at Gettysburg because I'd never been there. And then I stopped at Lake Norman, North Carolina to look for the Lake Norman monster and do some sky watching before heading on back home. So that's a typical mission for me. I'll just I like all that sort of thing. Now, most of my experience is in the swamps and in the woods, if you will, looking for cryptids.
You in your tromping around in the swamps and stuff, and in the brush there, do you ever have any encounters with orbs, either on film or in sight?
Man, I'm glad you said that because nobody ever asked me that. No, I've never, and I ain't gonna say it's an orb. Well, I'll tell you what I think I seen one time was swamp gas, literally.
Yeah.
Like,
really?
I seen something one time that would probably fill a two-car garage in size. That was like, not a bright white light, but like a glob of white. But it was like iridescent, like almost like opalescent color to it. And like it kind of floated up off the ground. And I was looking at it through the trees now, a good ways off. But it just kind of floated up and dissipated. And I said, well, damn, that's something I've never seen before. And I've seen a lot of stuff.
That's funny because so many encounters have been dismissed as swamp gas that it's kind of almost become like a stereotypical dismissal of like UFO stuff.
Yeah.
And to actually believe you've seen the manifestation of swamp gas as an entity, that's kind of interesting. And you said it was really big.
I got this like vibe, or this feel that was like a plasma thing. It wasn't really like, that was what the iridescence or opalescence was about. It had this energy of static or plasma or something was going on. I don't know. But either it was ball lightning of some kind of phenomena like that, or it was literally like some kind of ball of gas that was charged like plasma or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was real. It wasn't like an optical illusion, I don't think, or anything like that.
That's crazy. That's crazy. And any other like orb type experiences?
Not so much, man. I can't really think of like seeing like orbs floating around in the woods too much or anything like that. There was that one big thing. When I say it probably would fill a two-car garage, and it was probably about that big. I mean, roughly 20 feet across.
So you basically took a whole bunch of experiences and combined them into one, basically, for that big.
One.
Yeah.
What we've been talking about on the show, Mike, is I know that when we're out in the field and sometimes if Bigfoot is near, we'll see like orbs, lights, even if sometimes we don't see them in our eyes, but then when we review the footage, if it's nighttime footage, we'll see them, and it's above the trees. And I know
I have seen that phenomena with other people. getting that result.
Yeah, and the Cryptovania boys, Tommy and Jason have all seen it, and Tommy's caught some really cool stuff on video. So it does happen quite often, and so we do kind of ask that question every once in a while on the show.
Well, one of those strange places that things go on is the Uwharrie National Forest in North Carolina, where there's like Bigfoot activity, but there's also like other stuff going on.
We've heard that same thing.
Yeah, it's just weird that way. And, there's people that's seen some pretty strange stuff up there. There's a place in Alabama like that, and there's a place, well, I ain't going to tell you where that place is, but there's some places around like that.
Have you ever been to the Uwharrie yourself?
Yes, sir. I've been up there just a little bit. It's quite a little ride for me to get up there. That's probably, I don't know, a good 3 hour drive for me. But I've been up there a little bit, particularly with my running buddy, Julie Wrench. She's a longtime researcher from Ohio that's relocated back to North Carolina a few years back. And she's right there just outside the Uwharrie. So most of the time, if I go up there, I don't go on the Uwharrie. I go on her property, which is just off the Uwharrie, which is super active. But there's all kind of strangeness going on up there. I can vouch for that.
Have you seen some of the strangeness that's happening in there?
Well, no, I haven't. But I've talked to a lot of people, and I've seen a lot of like video evidence and stuff of strange things that's, just hard to explain weirdness. Like, I don't know. I'm not one of these people that throws around the word portal and stuff like that. But some places are just kind of weird. And I can't put my finger on it, Just a lot of weirdness, high weirdness, man.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. Here in Northwest PA, we have an area around the Kinzu Dam that whole area there is kind of known as being odd or strange, in that electronic equipment will fail, and batteries will get inexplicably sucked dead, and people will even feel like maybe they lost a little bit of time and such, and it seems like a lot of people will go in there, and kind of similar to the Uwharrie, in that people that maybe don't embrace the paranormal aspect can't explain what they've encountered, and they're not quite ready to get on the paranormal side of things, but at the same time they really can't explain what they've experienced in these areas, and it seems like they're kind of scattered throughout the country, in these areas that have some kind of wrinkle or something there that makes for these oddities that are very hard to explain.
I would suggest anybody that wants to follow up on that, look at a lot of different things, including geology and the amount of silica, the amount of quartz in the ground.
Oh yeah.
Quartz is really a big energy holder,
Yeah, there might be something to that.
It remembers history and, all kinds of stuff. Quartz is crazy like that, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a geologist or anything like that. I do love a nice rock and all that, but that's one trend. But it's just different places like that, and these strange things go on. And another place, like we talking about northwestern Pennsylvania, another place I've been to is right there just across the line in Ohio, where I was about on Beaver Creek, a mile from Pennsylvania and 2 miles from West Virginia, but staying in Ohio. And if you draw a big old circle on the map around that place, there's a heap of weirdness all around that whole region out there. So that's another one of them areas where, I don't know, just a lot of weird stuff goes on.
And it seems like a lot of these areas also happen to be very picturesque.
Oh, they are, actually.
The Uwharrie's beautiful, and so's the Kinzu area.
Yes, and so are the Catskills.
Mm-hmm.
So you're spot on there.
Mm-hmm. Well, and so is Minnesota. Can I just put a plug in for Minnesota?
Yeah, Minnesota. But yes, obviously there's a trend where it's. So what does that tell you? Mountainous areas. Well, you know, because I like to look for patterns. That's how I operate. Well, hey, all these places look cool. Well, I wonder why that is. Hey, mountains, right?
Well,
And that could
So
be going back
mountains
to what
mean
you were talking about with quartz, and that would also
rock.
indicate volcanic activity too, wouldn't it? If maybe
Well, I
quartz
don't
was up there.
know. Yeah, igneous rocks typically are formed in volcanic type, tectonic activities. But like some of these places don't have the rocks. That's what I was about to leave.
No.
All right, but there a lot of places are mountainous areas, but there are some places that aren't mountainous as well.
Well, we don't have any mountains in Minnesota, so that's not our deal. But Minnesota is full of lakes, 10,000 lakes and rivers and streams, and they all like that kind of stuff too. There's a lot of energy in Minnesota because of all that water. So, I don't know.
And speaking of the kind of the other cryptids besides Bigfoot, when I first really got into this, the giant birds and stuff, I kind of used to almost dismiss, and there's so many reports of giant birds and Mothman type things that it's really become very hard for me to dismiss. Do you find that too?
Oh, sure, absolutely. I mean, a lot of people don't give it a second thought, but like a lot of folks here in America, I'm partly Native American, so like I take Native American culture and legend and stuff into account to some degree. I mean, there's a reason for it, whatever that reason might be. So, I look at the legend of the Thunderbird. I think, well, there's something to that, maybe. Then you get into modern accounts with a similar type bird, maybe being, in Illinois or Texas and things like that. Now, what I saw, I would tell you, was not reptilian or a dinosaur or whatever. It wasn't a Mothman. It was like a golden eagle, but it was ginormous, and it picked a small little deer. It was picked a fawn off the road and flew away with a small deer. So that would take a big bird in itself to do that. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's probably, like, what people call a Thunderbird is probably more like a thermal riding glider, condor type entity. What I saw, I think, or what we saw, I should say, fits more into the mold of like the giant harpy eagle in the Philippine jungle flying around under the canopy, not up above it. Things like that. That's two different kind of animals, basically, I think, is what you're talking about in that situation. Then the Mothman and all those winged humanoids and those types of things, that kind of goes into its own little file over there. That's something yet different again,
Yeah.
So there's lots of different facets to the whole thing.
Well, what would you say was the wingspan of the one that you witnessed? 9, 10, 12 feet?
Oh, no, sir. At least, and I'm conservative, at least 16 feet. Probably 18.
Wow.
When it opened its wings up, what it did, it was like fake. It was in the middle of my lane. I was driving a pickup truck, and I had to slow down to keep from hitting the thing. And it looked at me in the truck, and then like hopped around with its back to me and opened its wings up and took off with a deer that it was standing on.
Wow.
And yeah, and 3 cycles with a wing, it was gone. Up over the big oaks and stuff and gone. Down by the Combahee River in 1989, I believe it was. All right, so this thing, when it opened its wings up, one wingtip was over the center line of U.S. Highway 21, and one wingtip was over the grass on the edge of the road, however wide that wing is.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Well, and we have something up here, Mike, and I've told you this that has been seen that's a big bird, and my daughter's actually seen it a few times, flying over the riverlands down there by the airport, which is why we were there today, actually. Um, and she comes with me all the time to photograph eagles and owls, so she knows exactly how big they are. And she said this mom is at least twice as big as an eagle, So
It was two
interesting
and three
stuff.
times what I saw.
Yeah.
It was easily
So
twice, maybe three times.
yeah, interesting. So I hope I see it
We
someday.
have a lot
She's seen it a few
of
times.
we have a lot of really large animals reported in South Carolina here. As far as there seems to be something where things run about 2.5 times as big as they're supposed to be. Whereas there was this rat snake, a simple black rat snake, on the loose in the suburbs in Columbia, South Carolina, some years ago, where people were coming from all over the world, zoos and museums and stuff, trying to catch this thing because it would easily shatter the world record.
Wow.
They couldn't tell how big it was, but everybody agreed it would easily blow the existing world record out of the water by a long ways. So everybody wanted the snake. So over in the Rosewood community, there for the longest time, for months, people was coming from all over the world looking under people's sheds and tin and boats and stuff, looking for that big rat snake. What spurned all that was a gentleman had been seeing the snake, and nobody believed how big it was. They just thought he was, pulling a leg or something. So he finally got it on video, and they showed it on the nightly news, and then it was all over the world. Then by the next day, because the internet age, what have you. So, but sure enough, was coming all the way from Australia and stuff to try to get their hands on that rat snake. There's something about here that the stuff just grows big like that, and I don't know how to account for that really.
It's hot down there. What the heck?
We got a long growing season. Yeah, the growing season's pretty much all year.
Oh my gosh. You know what? This hour has gone by so fast. We have 2 minutes left. I can't believe it. But this has been really fun, Mike. Wow, exciting. So if people want to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
Oh, they can see me on Facebook. I'll be around. And the best thing to do is follow Undiscovered Beasts and Strange Phenomena, and you'll see me.
Okay. So I will put that, and we will put that on our website or on our Facebook page. But listen, thank you so much for joining us tonight, Mike. This has been fun. Love listening to the stories. And, come back and see us soon. Come back on the show.
Oh, I'd love to. I had a great time. It was great talking to both of you.
Yeah, it's been really fun. And Jason, anything from you before we leave? Yeah.
Yeah. This has been awesome. And I loved hearing about the wing things, especially. That's kind of that's a great one for me because I used to not be a believer. So, thank you very much. Appreciate it, and thank you, Stephanie, for letting me join you tonight.
Oh, thank you for co-hosting. This has been really fun. So. All right. Well, everyone, thanks for joining us tonight, and come back next week for another episode of He Said, She Said, the Cryptid Show, and have a great week, everyone.
Good night, everybody.